Welcome back, everyone. It is the Unash and Dukes podcast coming your way here on CRM Live Sports and YouTube and X/Twitter and Facebook and everything in between. Welcome again, Scott Unash, Mark Dukes, and a big thanks to our presenting sponsor, the lovely and talented Emil's Hideaway on First Avenue Southeast in Cedar Rapids, right across from the Lindale Mall and next to the Home Depot. Couldn't do it without them. Great sponsors, Kurt Gustafson Agency of American Family Insurance, Bim Ritter Sportswear, and also, of course, did I miss one, Mark? Did we get them all? I think we got them all, right?
Let me check my email here.
Check your
I think
email.
we're good. I think we're
Okay.
good.
Everything is copacetic and had a good first week. A lot of good comments. Had good comments at bowling on Wednesday night before we got whomped by the other team. So that happens, Mark, as you know.
The comments are the most important, right?
Right. And they were happy. And it's like, hey, love Mark Ironside. Maybe even more realistic now that we can see him. Not that it wasn't realistic before, but I understand what the people are saying out there. But thank you to everybody for tuning in. Get the word out. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your family, tell everybody up and down the street. We're back and better than ever here on the Unash and Dukes podcast. But a lot to get to as we look to the weekend, Mark, and college football. But first, one last maybe hurrah for the golfers out there. I'm going to be hitting the links tomorrow late morning before the Iowa USC game and other games in the afternoon window. No Iowa State this week. They are off. But I think a lot of people in the last 2 or 3 days may have gotten the sticks out one last time in November. You don't get 70 degrees in mid-November very often in good old Eastern Iowa.
No, it'll be a nice time to get out. I remember we played in December one year at
Yep.
least, and could happen again. Hopefully, it'll happen again. My clubs are stored away, but readily accessible.
Just in case.
Indeed.
Now, way back in the day, we had one listener that had a streak of months consecutive months playing golf and let us know about it. He was up to like 25, including one of the winter months where he trekked out and had his own self-doubts about whether he should do that. We've all done that. I don't think I'm going to do that again because I'm older and wiser now. You have a temperature limit, right?
Well, sort of, kind of. I admire the guy, whoever that was. It's not for me. Let's just say that.
So 48 degrees, low winds, and sun. Are you playing?
Um, yeah,
Okay.
I think I would. Yeah.
Okay. I've done it. We've all done it. I've played in snow. You've played in snow.
Yeah,
That's when we had to, though.
exactly.
Not when we wanted to play. You always want to play
Football.
golf.
On football, you got to play whenever, whatever weather, right?
That is correct.
Golf, you
Good.
don't.
And that is a very good segue, Mark, because of the fact that the Iowa Hawkeyes are headed to the Memorial Coliseum in Los Angeles on Saturday afternoon to take on the USC Trojans. And apparently, according to the weather folks out there, there is a real good chance that we are going to see not only precipitation during the game, but it could be heavy precipitation. And unfortunately, could be associated with some thunderstorms, thunder and lightning. And nobody wants to see a 15-hour day, especially out on the road in Los Angeles, California. Yeah, Iowa's gone through that before. Kirk has gone through that before in Arizona. Wasn't a good experience, and nobody wants to see that duplicated again Saturday afternoon in Los Angeles.
No, the forecast isn't great. It's about 30 degrees better than last week against Oregon and Iowa City, but 64 degrees and 85 to 90% chance of rain in Los Angeles at game time. That'd be 12:30 on the coast, 2:30 Central Time. Low winds, which will help things a bit. But if this is a wet football, it changes things. We'll just have to see what the weather brings us. But there are other factors in this game that I think will maybe impact things more than the weather.
Yeah, and we'll get to those coming up here. This is Iowa's first trip to the Coliseum since 1976. So it has been nearly 50 years since Iowa last played at the Coliseum. Now, keep in mind, Iowa went out to Pasadena last year and did not have a very good evening against the UCLA Bruins. Not a great UCLA team back at that time, but and Kirk Ferentz. I think before we get to the X's and O's of Iowa USC, I think we got to hit the kind of background story, and that is the fact that Kirk has not been secretive and letting people know and letting the media know and letting everybody know about the fact that he doesn't like going out to the West Coast. And now this was before the expansion, the latest expansion of the Big Ten. He had that long game in Arizona, last year's game against UCLA. This is not Kirk's cup of tea, Mark.
No, it isn't, but he and others ought to get used to it because this is the price you pay for conference expansion. And the multiple time zone travels are the norm now, and they will be going forward unless something dramatically changes. This is what the college football world that we live in, and coaches better get used to it. I think Kirk is trying to adapt to it, but all this talk about Iowa hasn't had success on the West Coast, that's all well and good, but 1976, none of these players were born. I was in college, and I remember that game, youngsters. It was a week after Iowa beat Penn State in Happy Valley. Bob Cummings, maybe his greatest victory as the Iowa football coach. There weren't many, but 7-6 out there, and then they got trounced at USC. But my point is that these historical matchups and whatever, they just don't matter because the players involved in this particular game this weekend weren't around. Now, Kirk was around for some of them, but the players weren't.
Players weren't indeed, and it's the latest matchup between Iowa and USC. That wasn't too many years ago in the Holiday Bowl. And again, it's bowl games. It's bowl games in the last handful of years. Iowa went out to the Holiday Bowl and basically did what they wanted to do against a USC team that, quite frankly, looked like they did not want to have any part of the Holiday Bowl. I understand that it is a matchup between these two teams, but you also get the factor, okay, who wants to play in that game? Who doesn't want to play in that game? If I recall, USC had some guys that didn't play in that game. That was Tristan Wirfs' senior year, I believe. Iowa had a good squad and hadn't been out to San Diego in a long, long time, and they took it to the USC Trojans on that particular night.
Yeah, this is it's a game that when we saw the schedule, we thought it might be problematic because of the West Coast trip and whatnot. We didn't know how good USC was going to be, and turns out they're pretty good. They're right in the same tier as Iowa is in the college football playoff standings. Uh, Doing quite well at home, powerful offense, and I think it's even more problematic now for Iowa than it might have been in August.
Jade Maeva
Yeah,
is the quarterback for USC, and he's a good one. He started off he was 1A among sexy quarterbacks this year. First 2 weeks, he was the Heisman favorite. His name is still being bantered about. about people that could end up in New York, but uh, the hype has gone down a little bit. Still, 6'4", what, 225, 230 pound kid. And I mean, he can wing the football, and he's got weapons galore. Makai Lemon, leading rusher is a former walk-on who is a freshman, which is a little bit unusual for USC and King Miller. But Makai Lemon is going to play in the NFL. Might go hardship this year. We'll have to see after his junior year. But it's a USC team that's got a whole bunch of weapons up and down the line. And Lincoln Riley knows offense. May not know defense real well. He's brought in people to help him out with that, but he knows how to move the football up and down the football field.
They're averaging 503 yards per game on offense. That's number one in the Big Ten and number two nationally. You mentioned the quarterback, Maeva, and the wide receiver, Makai Lemon, who caught 11 balls last week for 160 yards against Northwestern. And King Miller has been very good. They have other running backs that are capable. This is an offense that is extremely capable. Obviously, now some of that yardage statistically is racked up against the likes of Missouri State and Georgia Southern earlier in the year, but USC has maintained that offensive production, and it's going to be an extreme test for Iowa's defense. Phil Parker and that group, especially, I think, on the ground. If the game is wet, Oregon gained 261 yards rushing against Iowa last week. Very unlike Iowa defense to allow that many yards. And it's something that, a lot of people didn't talk about during that game. Iowa allowing 261 yards rushing was not good. And that played a big part in that game against Oregon. And if USC can rush the ball, Iowa can be in trouble. On the other hand, if Iowa's defense can play better against the rush and put some pressure on Maeva, it could be a good outcome for Iowa. And that's really where I'm concentrating things on Iowa's defense and whether it can play better than it did against Oregon. Didn't need to play much pass defense against Oregon, but this is a larger test, I think, than it was against Oregon for Iowa's defense. And then you have the other side of the ball, which is a whole different story, I think.
A lot of people, and I'll ask you if you agree, Mark. A lot of people said Oregon out Iowa last week, and that is, like you said, ran the ball for 260 yards in the rain last week. Iowa doesn't give up 260 yards in defense very often. I guarantee you, at least I would think anyway, that Phil Parker had a long talk with the front seven or front six, whatever the formation may be, this week in practice, and they got after it. And I think they probably took that as a personal affront to their defensive manhood. Do you agree?
I would be surprised if that was not the case. Saying that and doing that is two different things. Maybe schematically, Phil Parker comes up with something different than he did against Oregon. I think that Oregon's line is better than Southern Cal's offensive line. Be that as it may, that's still a very productive rushing game, passing game, total offense for USC. So it's a challenge for the defense. And, Iowa's missing guys like Higgins and Jackson, and Montgomery has stepped in. Harrell, I think, is getting healthier. Maybe that's a good thing. They need guys like Entringer and Wampa to have good games. The corners need to play well, and need to see a little push out of the defensive line. I mean, Herkett and Llewellyn, I like them as defensive ends. I think Graves needs to, take a maybe step forward in his game. It's going to take all of them.
Yeah, it is. And this is going to be a difficult assignment. Now, like you said about the USC defense. This is not going to be confused with the likes of Ohio State and Clemson back in the day. This is a defense that has given up some yardage and can give up some yardage. The question is, can Iowa move the ball? Can Mark Gronowski hurt USC with his legs and his arm, especially if it's another wet, rainy, possibly messy ball game? Remember, this is on natural turf at the Coliseum, and there are not only USC games out there, but they play soccer out there at the Coliseum. They play high school games out there in Los Angeles in the Coliseum. This is a grass field that has been used up a little bit. It's not Kingston in the 70s.
No, and any football coach will tell you that wet conditions favor the passing game, despite the rain and whatnot, because receivers know where they're going, defensive backs do not. I mean, that's true all the time, but especially so in the rain, making cuts and whatnot. So that could favor a guy like Makai Lemon hooking up with Maeva. But I think on the other side of the ball is the key to the game to me. And that's whether Iowa's offensive line, which is now a semifinalist for the Moore Award, can be effective, mainly running the football. Southern Cal is middle of the pack nationally in total defense and allows about 140 yards a game to teams rushing the football. So if Iowa can establish that line of scrimmage, chew up clock, and do what Kirk Ferentz loves to do, and that's shorten the game and have a chance. I think the big key for Iowa is controlling the clock as much as it can and keeping it out of the hands of the Southern Cal explosive offense.
And win the special teams.
Yeah.
That I think the other emphasis this week, besides shoring up the rush defense, had to be just getting the special teams on the same boat and on the same page, and no high snaps, not to put anything. It was a lousy day last Saturday at Kinnick Stadium. It's hard to be a long snapper, especially in those conditions, not putting any bad juju on that guy. But that's got to get better. People have figured out they don't need to kick the ball to Weegan all the time. So that's been a little bit of a problem. Can Iowa diagnose that a little bit? So I agree with you. It's got to be a short game for Iowa to come away with a victory in this one. Can they do it? That's the big question. And they can't let Maeva go crazy. They got to get some pressure on him. Lettner's got to have a big day. I think Wampa's got to have a big day. And I think we may see a little bit more blitzing from Iowa than we usually do for Phil Parker. Just my thoughts anyway.
I think Mark Gronowski has to have a solid game as well. He doesn't have to win it by himself. This is the only player in the country who has scored in every football game this year. That's all of college football, at least FBS. It's Mark Gronowski. And mainly it's been done on the ground. A lot of rushing touchdowns, a lot of short rushing touchdowns. But nobody has ever convinced me that 6 points on the ground is less than 6 points through the air. You know, people want to scream that passing game isn't very good. And it really isn't. It's not a great passing game for Iowa. A lot of things go into that. The receivers, the scheme, all kinds of stuff. Some Iowa fans want a quarterback to have the arm of Marino and the legs of Lamar Jackson and the brains of Tom Brady. That player doesn't exist. I think Iowa has an upgraded quarterback this year in Gronowski. He's a good leader, I think. Nothing wrong with the short passes. 4 or 5 yard passes are just as good as a 4 or 5 yard run. Mix that up in there, and I think that would be beneficial to the Iowa offense.
Are those the same people that want a magical golf club that hits 300 yards straight for $99? Whole different subject.
Money back guarantee.
And a money back guarantee. We are headed for perhaps an Indiana-Ohio State Big Ten championship game. Indiana, I believe, off this week, and then they have Wisconsin, and then they play the bucket game against Purdue, which they basically can name the score in. And although Wisconsin's coming off a victory over the Washington Huskies at home, you got to think Indiana's going to win those two. And you got to think Ohio State's going to run the table, although there is that game against that team from up north at the end, which has gummed up the works in recent years for Ryan Day and whomever is coaching the Ohio State University Buckeyes. But they're on a collision course, I think, right now, Mark, and I think it would be hard-pressed to say that Indiana and Ohio State, not only 1 and 2 in the college football rankings, but also they're the best two teams in the Big Ten this year.
Without question. And, Oregon might have something to say about that. I don't think so. I think these two teams are clearly the top two teams in the Big Ten. They're the top two seeds in the college football playoff bracket right now. So I wish they played before the Big Ten championship game, but that's not the case. USC hopes for one of those two teams to lose, and USC run out, and then USC might have a say. I think USC still has to play Oregon.
Yes, they do.
So that will be a big game, kind of an elimination game. But I know USC is hoping to run out and Ohio State or Indiana to lose, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think the pecking order has been fairly firmly established at the top with the top two, and then you have a whole gaggle of teams, I think, maybe from 3 to, say, 6 or 7, and then another tier after that. And Iowa and USC are both in that second tier right now, trying to, establish their ground as much as they can in the last few games.
Tell you what, there hasn't been that sterling weekend of Big Ten football matchups. See, Brad Nessler and Garrett Danielson pining for a close game. They got one in the rain last week. This isn't the SEC on CBS anymore. When you got Penn State and Michigan State in that national spotlight at 2:35 on CBS, looking for their first Big Ten victories.
No, I'll tell you a game to watch though is Michigan at Northwestern.
At Wrigley.
Be careful of that one.
Okay, that's an early game on Saturday. Night games aren't much better. Purdue goes to Seattle to take on Washington, be a much better basketball game. And UCLA is at the Horseshoe to take on the Ohio State Buckeyes. I was wrong. Indiana does play. They host Wisconsin this week. So it's Wisconsin, then a bye week, and then the bucket for Indiana. Nebraska is off this week in the Big Ten. Michigan State got the wonderful news that they have to give up, 14 wins that nobody is going to remember or even care about. But Michigan State does come into Iowa City next week for the final home game.
Yeah, that's a must-win for Iowa. Not to get ahead of ourselves too much, but it's Michigan State and then at Nebraska for Iowa after this trip to the West Coast. So we're down to the nitty-gritty here, Scott. Three games left in the regular season. Crazy.
It is crazy. And here's one of those aspects of craziness is the fact if you think back to early September, everybody was on the Florida State bandwagon, and everybody wrote off Alabama after game one. Ty Simpson was a horrible quarterback. And now Ty Simpson is one of the two favorites for the Heisman Trophy. Funny how college football works right now.
Yeah, Alabama beat Florida State in that opener, and now Alabama is the number 4 seed in the college football bracket. Only lost that one game. And you look at that college bracket, and it's half of it, not half, but 5 of them. 5 of those teams are from the SEC. And you got 3 teams in the Big Ten, from the Big Ten in that bracket right now. Certainly things will change, but Alabama's got an interesting game this week against Oklahoma. It is at home. Um, and Georgia and Texas get together. If Texas is in the bracket right now, if they want to stay there, they best beat Georgia.
Remember how Arch Manning was also terrible about a month
Yeah.
ago? Now Arch Manning's back in the top of the NFL draft watch list. So
Funny how things have like a 24-second news cycle, right?
yeah, kind of interesting how that all plays out. But yeah, that's the way things shake down as far as the college football playoff is concerned. As we mentioned, Iowa State off this week, and nobody marking the Big 12 undefeated anymore after BYU's loss to Texas Tech. You've got Texas Tech, BYU, and don't forget about us, Cincinnati, with one loss right now, and then three teams with two losses: Arizona State, Utah, and the Houston Cougars, who might be the best story in the Big 12 and maybe one of the best stories in the country this year. That's a fun team if you have not watched Houston football. I did not think they were going to be able to compete at this level in the Big 12, but here they are. And of those six teams, two of them are going to make the tournament or make the championship, I should say. And yeah, I think Texas Tech is pretty assured of getting in there with the schedule they have left right now, and just how good they are. Who they're going to play, I have no idea. I hope it's BYU, but their schedule's a little bit suspect going from here on in. If I can bring that up right now, they've got at Cincinnati. Well, they got TCU this week, and then at Cincinnati, and then Central Florida. So no layups right there for the BYU Cougars.
No, the Big 12 has a lot less clarity than the Big 10 does, right? At the top. Right now, Texas Tech looks to be the team that will make the college football bracket. Uh, as it stands today, it would play Miami of Florida in the first round. Of course, things could change between now and then. We're talking about today. I think Texas Tech is the best team in the Big 12. But um, we'll see what transpires. The Big 12 is only going to get one team in the tournament. Not the Big 12 championship game, but the tournament. I don't think there's any way they're going to get two.
Maybe it would have to be BYU running the table, Texas Tech running the table, and they meet and they have a shot, perhaps. And I think Georgia's got to win and Alabama's got to win on Saturday. That would help.
Yeah,
out.
you've got Notre Dame is going to be slotted in there.
Yeah,
and you're going to have another team like South Florida. They're going to make the field as opposed to a team from a Power Four conference, and that's a debate that we and others have had. Whether that's whether they should have a Group of Five game. Some years yes, some years no. Would you want South Florida in the tournament over a BYU?
Boise didn't do him any favors last year.
Oh, no.
South Florida is pretty good, but it remains to be seen. If a South Florida makes it, well, Mark, we're going to 16 soon. You know that. I know that. Everybody knows that. America knows that. It's going to be 16 teams. So,
and that'll be too many, just as 12 is now. Period.
I can live with 12. 16 is going to be too many. I agree with you, but it's coming. So that's football. That's football. The NFL, by the way, congratulations to your Bears, who are right now at the top of the NFC North at this point, Mark?
Yeah, for a short time. Don't get excited. They have a tough schedule, including a game at Minnesota this week. The Bears would be lucky to have a winning record. And speaking of the NFL, I'd appreciate it if you take that banner down that's in back of you, will you?
Well, I don't. It may fall down on its own Sunday if the Chiefs do not win at Denver, because If they don't pull it off at Mile High, they're not going to win the division for the 10th year in a row. And the playoffs would be looking a little slim. So
Big game. That's a big game.
it is a huge, huge game. And Denver wins every game by 2 points. And I only have two bets, I think, on people at bowling, Denver Bronco fans. We'll see. I'm either going to be, we're either going to be in good shape next Wednesday, or I'm going to be paying a lot of people next Wednesday. Hey, Audi Crooks just scored again, Mark. 97-50, the Iowa State women beat Valpo on Wednesday night, and a record performance for the Iowa State center out of Algona Garrigan in 19 plus minutes. 43 points, 7 rebounds, and throw 2 assists in there. Only thing she did not do was make a 3-pointer and sell programs at Hilton Coliseum against a Valpo team that may need to reassess their inside defensive scheme. Playing behind Audi Crooks, not the way to do it, but hats off to her. She is a force. Big 12 preseason player of the year. She was 18 of 23 and 7 of 9 from the free throw line in 19 minutes and 56 seconds. I don't know what more you can say. And she has just been, if there were any doubters out there, they've been proven wrong a long time ago. And good to have her name in the record book like that.
She could have named the number last night, but less than 20 minutes. That's the first time that someone in the Big 12 has scored 40 or more points in less than 20 minutes, fewer than 20 minutes in 25 years. That's how good that was. Listen, if you give Audi Crooks the ball within 5 feet of the basket, that's a problem. You got to double her, especially a team like Valparaiso. Not to throw cold water on it, but I think Crooks had a better game in the NCAA tournament against Maryland, in which she scored 40. That's against Maryland in the NCAA tournament. That was a phenomenal performance. Again, she could have named the number last night, or Bill Fenley could have. But nevertheless, 43 is 43, and hats off to her.
And I think hats off to Bill, too. In the post-game news conference, he said if he left her in for 40, I think she would have scored 100. And I think he's right. I would have taken that bet, but she got the record, and Bill got her out of there. And if she played 30 minutes, I think she would have scored 55 at least. But why push it? I mean,
For what
why
point?
risk? Yeah, there's no point. Why risk injury? Iowa State's going to have a lot more major games coming up on the schedule in the next couple of weeks and going into the Big 12. So,
if you haven't really looked into Audi Crooks, this is a really cool person. If you look at her interviews, you look at her videos, and some of the things she does and says, she's a very humble person. She does some commercials for a particular company. She's engaging. I think she's a wonderful woman, and obviously a very good basketball player. But people, if you don't know Audi Crooks, take a look and find out a little bit more about her.
Not knowing her, but we did, I think, 4 or 5 of her games when she was at Garrigan. Coming over here for the rivalry Saturday and then playing Eastern Iowa teams at the state tournament. And just talking to people, there wasn't one negative thing said about Audi Crooks. And I agree with you. There were people that had their doubts. I had my doubts on how she would adapt to big-time Division I. But she's done so brilliantly with flying colors, and she's the best player in the Big 12. Period.
Yeah, a very little thing, but I have a niece who competed against her in high school, mainly in track, and they still text to this day because they became friends. and not adversaries on the athletic field. And my niece has nothing but great things to say about her, and perhaps I'm tainted because of that.
Hey, another note before we leave on the Big 12, Libby Fandel starting at Kansas
Yes.
as a freshman. So from Cedar Rapids Xavier. So hats off to her.
Mhm.
Kudos. Great job by her. Iowa USC prediction, Mark. What do you think? Is the crystal ball foggy and wet because of the rain at the Coliseum?
I predicted Iowa 19-16 last week, and it came pretty close to that score, except the other team won. But this week, I'm going to say it's a bit more of a track meet, and I'm going to say 31-28 USC.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go 30-20 USC. 30-20. Iowa's 3 losses by a combined 10 points to 3 at the time rated teams. Can they win a close game? That's going to be the question. Can they stop USC from moving the ball, running the ball, slow down Maeva a little bit, and can they win a close game? 3 questions that have to be answered by Iowa on Saturday. And we'll find out, and we'll talk more about it next week on the Unash and Dukes podcast. All right. Good first week, Mark. It was fun.
Uh, we're a developmental program. We're going to get there, but it's fun. And thanks for listening out there.
And thanks to all our great sponsors. Emel's Hideaway, our presenting sponsor, as well as Kurt Gustafson Agency of American Family Insurance and Bim Ritter Sportswear in downtown Cedar Rapids. All right, Mark, have a great weekend. We'll talk next week.
Sounds great. Talk then.
All right. For Mark Duke, Scott Unash saying so long. Thanks for listening to the Unash and Dukes podcast right here. And we'll join you next week. Have a great weekend, everybody.